Zainab's wedding morning in Lagos felt like a dream. The sun was bright, the hall shimmered with gold decorations, and music floated through the air. She looked breathtaking in her lace gown, surrounded by laughter and flashes from cameras. Everyone admired her calm grace, but behind the cheerful faces, not every smile was real. Among the guests stood Amara, her cousin, watching every move she made. Amara had always been the one people called the most beautiful, while Zainab was praised for her intelligence. Their rivalry had been quiet for years, hidden behind polite hugs and fake compliments. But today it burned stronger than ever. Amara arrived wearing an ivory dress that almost looked like a wedding gown. Whispers filled the room as people glanced between the two cousins. Zainab tried to ignore it, focusing on her big moment. Just as she prepared to walk down the aisle, Amara leaned close and whispered with a cold smile, "He told me he still prefers me." The words pierced Zainab's heart. For a second, her breath caught, but she straightened her veil and forced a smile. Cameras flashed, and no one noticed her trembling hands as she walked forward, pretending everything was perfect. When the vows began, the tension became heavy. Tun's eyes moved from Zainab to Amara, and confusion spread through the crowd. Then, to everyone's shock, he stopped the ceremony. The guests gasped, and a deep silence filled the hall. He took a deep breath and spoke firmly. He revealed that Amara had tried to ruin their wedding, sending fake messages, spreading lies, and almost breaking them apart. Zainab's heart pounded as everyone turned toward Amara. Tun's voice softened when he said, "I almost believed her lies, until I realized who truly stood by me when no one else did." The hall erupted with mixed emotions. Amara's face turned pale as tears filled her eyes. She couldn't bear the humiliation and ran out, leaving her family in stunned silence. Later that night, after all the noise and chaos had faded, Zainab sat by her window and wrote a letter to Amara. She didn't write with anger, but with forgiveness. Her words carried quiet strength and peace. She wanted her cousin to know that true love isn't built on jealousy. It grows where loyalty and trust live. Amara walked into the wedding hall with her head high, her dress hugging every curve, the color just a shade away from white. The soft ivory shimmer made people turn their heads instantly. Some guests gasped quietly, whispering to one another, wondering if she had mistaken the event for her own wedding. Zainab, standing across the room, froze for a moment when she saw her cousin. Memories of endless childhood competitions flashed in her mind, from who got better grades to who received more compliments. Amara had always tried to outshine her, and today, she was doing it again in front of everyone. The hall was filled with laughter and music, but Zainab could feel the tension cutting through the air. Every time she smiled, she could sense Amara's eyes following her. The photographers kept glancing at both women, unsure of who truly looked like the bride. Amara's confident grin never faded, as if she enjoyed every uncomfortable look Zainab received. Relatives began to exchange uneasy glances, realizing the choice of Amara's outfit wasn't a mistake, it was a message. Zainab's bridesmaids tried to distract her, adjusting her veil, reminding her to focus on the joy of the day. But deep inside, she felt a sting of betrayal. Amara wasn't just attending her wedding, she was trying to steal the spotlight. The two cousins had always been compared by family, Amara the beauty, Zainab the brains. Today, Amara seemed determined to remind everyone that beauty still wins attention. As Zainab walked past her cousin, she could smell the expensive perfume Amara wore, bold and heavy. Amara leaned closer with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and whispered, "You look lovely, cousin. Let's see if he still thinks so after today." The words sent a chill through Zainab's body, but she kept walking, pretending not to care. Inside, her heart ached, but she refused to let jealousy destroy her special moment. Around them, guests kept whispering, cameras kept flashing, and the music grew louder. But under all the glitter and glamour, something darker brewed. Amara's presence wasn't just about fashion. It was about power, pride, and old wounds that had never healed. And as Zainab smiled for the crowd, she knew this day would test more than love. It would test loyalty, family, and the strength of her heart. Amara the beauty, and Zainab the brains, had grown up in the same house but lived in completely different worlds. From childhood, their family drew invisible lines between them. Whenever Amara entered a room, people admired her looks, the smooth skin, the bright eyes, the perfect smile. She learned early that charm could win hearts. Zainab, on the other hand, was the quiet achiever. Her joy came from reading, learning, and solving problems. While Amara received compliments for her beauty, Zainab earned praise for her sharp mind. But instead of love, these differences built walls between them. At family gatherings, the comparisons never stopped. Aunties would whisper, "Amara could be a model," while others replied, "But Zainab will be a doctor someday." What sounded like praise only deepened the divide. Amara began to believe that beauty was her only weapon, and Zainab learned to hide her feelings behind achievements. They smiled for family photos, but both knew there was quiet resentment behind every grin. As they grew older, life only made the competition stronger. When Zainab got a scholarship, Amara rolled her eyes and called her Miss Perfect. When Amara won a beauty contest, Zainab congratulated her but felt a sting of pain inside. It wasn't jealousy, it was exhaustion from always being compared. Their parents tried to balance attention, but words like, "You should be more like your cousin," had already done the damage. Even at Zainab's wedding, the old rivalry resurfaced. Family members whispered, "Can you believe how stunning Amara looks today?" Some even joked that if Tund had met both cousins earlier, he might have chosen differently. Zainab heard the comments and smiled weakly, pretending not to care, but inside, she wondered why her happiest days still carried the same shadow. Amara too carried her own pain. Beneath her perfect smile, she hated being seen as nothing more than a pretty face. She wanted the same respect Zainab earned effortlessly. But instead of seeking peace, she let jealousy take control. Each comparison from the past echoed in her mind, until admiration turned into silent rivalry. That tension, built over years of quiet competition, was now about to explode. In a single day meant for love and unity, all the hidden feelings, family pressure, and old insecurities would rise to the surface, changing everything between the two cousins forever. Just before Zainab walked down the aisle, her hands trembled slightly as her bridesmaids adjusted her veil. The sound of soft music and cheerful voices filled the hall, but her mind was calm, filled with thoughts of love, hope, and the future. She took a deep breath, ready to take her first step toward the man she believed would be her forever. Then, out of nowhere, Amara appeared beside her, smiling sweetly, pretending to fix her veil. Her perfume filled the air, heavy and familiar. She leaned close, her lips almost touching Zainab's ear, and whispered, "He told me he still prefers me." The words hit like a storm. Zainab froze, her heart skipping a beat. For a moment she couldn't breathe. It felt like the ground beneath her had shifted. Every sound in the room faded. The laughter, the music, even her heartbeat seemed distant. Amara pulled back slowly, her smile never fading, her eyes cold with satisfaction. Zainab looked at her cousin, searching for any sign that it was a cruel joke, but Amara's expression said everything. Zainab's chest tightened as her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. Cameras were waiting, guests were watching, and she couldn't afford to break. Her makeup artist had just said, "You look perfect," and she was determined to prove it. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and forced a soft smile, pretending nothing had happened. Every step toward the aisle now felt heavier, as if each footstep carried the weight of betrayal. In her mind, questions spun wildly. Was it true? Did Tund ever tell her that? Did he still love Amara? Doubt clawed at her heart, but she refused to stop. The song began, signaling her walk. She held her bouquet tightly, her fingers cold against the flowers. Amara stood behind her, watching with quiet victory. Zainab's smile for the crowd looked perfect, but her soul was breaking inside. As she moved forward, she remembered her mother's words. "A woman's grace is her power." She took a deep breath and decided that no whisper, no jealousy, no poison could ruin her moment. Her heart ached, but her spirit stayed strong. She was determined to finish what she started, with dignity, even if the truth shattered her later. Zainab's heart stopped the moment Amara's cruel whisper echoed in her ears. The world around her blurred, the laughter, the music, even the flashing cameras faded into silence. Her chest tightened as if the air had turned heavy. For a few seconds she couldn't move. The words, "He told me he still prefers me," kept replaying in her mind like a curse. She wanted to cry, to ask why, to run away from everything. But it was her wedding day. Dozens of guests waited to see her smile, to watch her walk down the aisle like the perfect bride she had always dreamed of being. She took a shaky breath, forcing a smile onto her trembling lips. Her cheeks burned from pretending. The cameras flashed brightly, capturing her every move, every fake expression that hid the chaos inside her. Her veil became her shield, covering the tears that threatened to fall. Her bridesmaids thought she was nervous. They had no idea her heart was breaking with every step. She glanced toward Tund at the altar. He looked calm, unaware of the storm she was fighting within. Every step down the aisle felt longer than the last. The song playing in the background sounded distant, almost mocking. Guests whispered softly about how stunning she looked, calling her a picture of perfection. If only they knew how shattered she felt beneath that beauty. Her smile was the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. She didn't want anyone, especially Amara, to see her crumble. Inside, her thoughts battled. Could it be true? She wondered. Did he ever love Amara more than me? Was this whole wedding built on a lie? Her heart screamed for answers, but her face stayed calm. When she finally reached the altar, her hands trembled as she placed them in Tund's. His warm touch brought a brief sense of comfort, but the doubt still lingered deep inside her. As the ceremony continued, Zainab smiled for the guests, nodded at her family, and posed for photos that would one day look perfect. But behind every flash, her soul was crying. No one saw the pain hidden under the veil. No one knew that beneath that glowing bride stood a woman holding her heart together with nothing but courage. During the vows, the hall fell completely silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the bride and groom, waiting for the most beautiful moment of the day. Zainab stood in front of Tund, her heart pounding beneath her lace gown, still haunted by Amara's whisper. Tund held her hands gently, looking into her eyes, but something in his expression had changed. He looked uneasy, as if something heavy was pressing on his mind. The pastor smiled and asked him to repeat the vows, but before he could, Tund hesitated. His eyes moved from Zainab to Amara, who stood among the guests, her lips curved in a smug smile. The tension grew so thick that even the music seemed to stop. Guests began exchanging glances, sensing something was wrong. Zainab's breath caught as she watched Tund's face. He finally took a deep breath and said, "Before I say these vows, there's something everyone needs to know." A murmur spread across the hall. The bridesmaids froze, the photographer lowered his camera, and the pastor looked confused. Tund's voice trembled slightly, but his eyes were clear. He turned toward Amara and said, "You tried to ruin this day, but I won't let lies destroy what's real." The crowd gasped. Amara's confident smile disappeared, replaced with shock. Tund continued, explaining how he had received strange messages and calls before the wedding. Someone telling him Zainab wasn't the right one, someone spreading rumors about her. He paused and said, "I found out it was you, Amara." The hall erupted in whispers. Some guests stood up in disbelief, others covered their mouths. Amara's face went pale, and she shook her head, denying it, but everyone could see the truth written across her face. Zainab's eyes widened, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Not from pain this time, but from relief. Tund turned back to her, his voice steady now. "I almost believed the lies," he said softly. "But then I remembered who stood by me when the world turned against me." The guests fell silent again. The truth had come out in the most unexpected way, turning what was supposed to be a perfect ceremony into a moment no one would ever forget. What started as heartbreak ended as a powerful reveal of loyalty and love, witnessed by everyone who once doubted it. The moment Tund spoke about the leaked wedding details, the entire hall fell into stunned silence. Guests leaned forward, trying to catch every word. Zainab stood frozen beside him, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Tund's voice was calm but heavy with emotion. He explained how, weeks before the wedding, someone had sent private details of their plans to gossip blogs. Things only a close family member could have known. Photos of the wedding dress, the location, even the exact time of the ceremony had somehow been made public. He paused for a moment, looking directly at Amara. "You wanted to destroy this day before it even began," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. Gasps spread across the crowd. He continued, revealing how rumors had circulated that Zainab was marrying him for money, and that she was secretly in love with someone else. "At first, I didn't want to believe it," he said quietly, but the messages kept coming. Fake screenshots, fake stories, everything designed to make me doubt her. Zainab's eyes filled with tears as she realized just how far her cousin had gone. Amara's face turned pale, Her hands trembled as everyone's eyes fell on her. Tund went on, explaining that a week before the wedding, he received a message claiming to be from Zainab, saying she wanted to call off the marriage. It almost worked. He had spent hours questioning everything, nearly ending the relationship. But something told me it wasn't her, he said, turning toward his bride. The words weren't hers. The heart behind them wasn't hers. The guests were silent, watching the truth unfold like a movie. The same cousin who had smiled so confidently earlier was now exposed in front of everyone. Amara tried to speak, but her voice broke, and no one believed her. The weight of her betrayal filled the hall. Zainab's father shook his head in disbelief, while her mother quietly wiped tears. Tund ended his confession by saying, "Love built on trust can't be destroyed by lies." His words hit deep. The crowd broke into quiet applause, not just for the groom's courage, but for the truth that had finally come to light. In that moment, everyone saw the real betrayal, and the real strength of the woman who stood silently beside him. Tund's voice shook slightly as he looked around the silent hall. All eyes were on him, and even the air felt still. I almost believed her lies, until I realized who stood by me when the world didn't. "Zainab," he said, his words cutting through the tension like light through darkness. The crowd went quiet, listening closely. Zainab's breath caught as she tried to hold back tears. In that moment, it wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was the truth being laid bare before everyone. Tund turned toward his bride, his voice softening. He spoke about the nights when rumors had filled his phone, when messages came from unknown numbers trying to convince him Zainab wasn't loyal. He had doubted, he had feared, but every time he fell apart, she was there, calm, patient, and kind. Even when I grew cold, even when I pushed her away, she never stopped believing in us, he said, his eyes glistening with emotion. Zainab blinked hard, tears slipping down her cheeks as the crowd watched silently, many wiping their own eyes. Amara stood in the background, her face pale, realizing her plan had completely failed. She had expected Tund to turn against Zainab, not stand beside her in front of everyone. Her confidence was gone, her head dropped in shame. But Tund wasn't finished. He continued, "It's easy to listen to gossip, but it takes strength to recognize who truly loves you. Zainab has shown me what real love looks like." The audience erupted into soft murmurs of approval. Some clapped quietly, others nodded, touched by his honesty. Zainab's hands trembled as Tund held them tightly, his gaze never leaving hers. "Today," he said, "I promise to protect you not just from the world, but from anything that tries to break what we've built." For a moment, everyone forgot it was a wedding and felt like they were watching a real-life love story unfold. Zainab smiled through her tears, her heart finally steady after all the pain. The hall filled with warmth, and the tension melted away. What started as a day filled with jealousy and deceit had turned into a powerful lesson about loyalty, forgiveness, and true love that refuses to be broken. Amara fled in tears as the family watched in silence. The hall that had once been filled with music and laughter now felt frozen. The guests whispered in shock, some covering their mouths, others shaking their heads. No one had expected such a scene at a wedding meant to celebrate love. Zainab stood still, her hands trembling slightly as she watched her cousin rush out of the hall, her heels clicking loudly against the marble floor. The same woman who had arrived in pride and confidence now disappeared in shame and heartbreak. For a moment no one moved. The only sound was the soft rustle of dresses, and the faint echo of Amara's sobs fading into the distance. Family members looked around, unsure what to say. The truth had been exposed so clearly that there was nothing left to defend. Zainab's mother quietly wiped her tears, and Tund's parents exchanged stunned glances. Everyone understood the weight of what had just happened. Betrayal uncovered in front of hundreds of eyes. Zainab took a slow breath, her chest still heavy but lighter than before. The pain Amara had caused her couldn't be erased, but there was a strange peace in knowing the truth was out. Some guests began whispering kind words to her, praising her strength. Others felt sympathy for Amara, realizing that jealousy had destroyed her more than anyone else. The once lively wedding had turned into a lesson about pride, envy, and consequences. Tund gently held Zainab's hand, his voice soft as he said, "Let's continue." His words broke the heavy silence, and slowly, the pastor nodded, signaling for the ceremony to go on. The crowd began to settle again, their faces still filled with emotion. Though the event had taken a shocking turn, The love between the bride and groom now shone brighter than ever. As the vows continued, people couldn't stop thinking about what had just unfolded. Amara's empty seat was a reminder of how quickly jealousy can destroy happiness. Zainab smiled faintly through her tears, not out of victory, but out of understanding. She knew her cousin's actions came from pain, not pure hatred. And even though the moment had been humiliating for Amara, it was also the turning point that showed everyone that love built on truth can survive even the deepest betrayal. Later that night, Zainab sat by the window of her hotel suite, the city lights of Lagos glowing softly in the distance. The wedding was finally over, but her heart was still full of mixed emotions. The day had been beautiful and painful all at once. She had smiled through betrayal, stood strong through public shame, and found comfort in love that didn't waver. As she sat there in her white robe, holding a pen and paper, she took a deep breath and began to write. The letter wasn't easy, but she knew it was necessary. Her hand trembled slightly as she wrote her cousin's name at the top. Every word came straight from her heart. She didn't write to blame, or to remind Amara of her humiliation. She wrote because she didn't want anger to be the final chapter of their story. She wrote about their childhood, the laughter they once shared, and the dreams they had as little girls. "You hurt me deeply today," she wrote, "but I refused to let that pain turn into hate. You wanted to take my happiness, yet all I wish for you now is peace." Tears filled Zainab's eyes as she remembered how broken Amara had looked running out of the hall. Beneath her cousin's pride, there had always been a sadness, a need to be seen, to be loved. Zainab understood that now. She folded the letter gently and placed it in an envelope, deciding to send it the next morning. Tund entered the room quietly, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Zainab smiled faintly and nodded. "I just needed to let go," she whispered. He kissed her forehead and said, "That's why I fell in love with you. You have a heart that forgives even when it's been hurt." Outside, the night was calm. Zainab looked out the window one last time, feeling the weight finally lift from her chest. The pain of betrayal no longer held power over her. She had chosen forgiveness, not weakness, but strength. Her letter carried one clear message, a reminder that real love doesn't live in beauty, money, or pride. It grows only where loyalty, truth, and kindness stand. Hey love sparkling heart, thank you so much for watching till the end. Cherry Blossom, don't forget to like, thumbs up, drop a sweet comment, speech balloon, and hit that subscribe button bell for more heart-touching stories. See you in the next one, 2 hearts.